Hello guys, a very good morning. I welcome you all to Gradeup. I am Shailender Singh and from today we are going to start a new series which is PIB summary, that is Press Information Bureau summary. Now what is the importance of this PIB summary for you? Guys, this new initiative is going to be very critical for your overall preparation for UPSC, whether you are preparing for EPFO, whether you are preparing for civil services exam, because you know that a lot of questions are directly picked up by the government, by UPSC from PIB, because PIB or Press Information Bureau, this is also a government source, and UPSC, you know that it's also a government body, and that is why a lot of these schemes, a lot of these facts, a lot of new initiatives, best practices, agreements, conventions, a lot of new policies, laws, all these things, they are contained in the PIB and that are often asked by the UPSC exam, both in prelims and if you're preparing for civil services, then in mains as well. And I do hope that you will have some benefit from this initiative, in fact a lot of benefit, because we are going to do a summary and analysis of PIB every day, that is on 5 days a week. So guys, I hope that you are ready, and I welcome you all to Gradeup once again to this new initiative that we have launched. Good morning everybody out here. Rudra, Pankaj, Shivu, Sukhveer, Lavkush. Alright, so quite a few guys in the class. Alright, I'm glad that you guys are up so early and attending this lecture. Alright, so guys, so let's see what are the contents that we'll be covering today. So these are some of the topics that we'll be covering today. Government constitutes a high-level ministerial committee for implementation of Paris Agreement. Then the second topic we are going to take is related to malaria. Third topic is regarding a recent MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, that has been signed between the Indian and the Finland governments on environmental protection and biodiversity. Remains a very important theme. You know, environmental protection, biodiversity, environmental conservation, these are very hot topics for UPSC. And finally we'll be doing reviews of Ayushman Bharat, this program scheme the government launched, healthcare scheme some time ago. So we'll be doing about this topic as well. We'll be talking more about this topic as well. All right, so these are some of the themes that we'll be covering today. Krunal, good morning. Nice to see you so early in the class. Harshpreet, good morning to you. All right, Harshpreet, in fact, yes, you might be attending this class for the first time, because this class for PIB has begun today itself. So this is the first class of PIB, and I do hope that you gain something from this initiative, because here we are going to do a daily analysis of the press releases of PIB, and a lot of these facts are there, a lot of these terminologies are there that need further explanation and analysis. Not only the analysis of the news that we're doing, but also a lot of these associated facts that we have to drill more into for holistic preparation, because UPSC, you never know, it might not ask you directly from the news, but might ask you something related to one small aspect or one terminology that is mentioned somewhere in the article, in the press release. So this is how we are going to prepare. So everybody, good morning once again. Gauri, Shrikutan. All right, so Priya, quite a few people out here. All right, so guys, let's move towards the first topic of the day, which is government constitutes a high-level ministerial committee for implementation of Paris Agreement. So this is a recent development wherein the government has affirmed or reaffirmed India's seriousness on climate change. You know that climate change is a very big issue for the entire humanity. It's not just restricted to one particular country, and that is why it should be the effort of all the countries of the world together to fight climate change. And that is why Paris Agreement, you know, there was this meeting of all the countries to fight climate change, and a lot of the important leaders of the world, they got assembled in Paris in December 2015, and they signed this Paris Agreement. So 195 countries of the world, they signed this Paris Agreement, and you know, US later happened to pull out of it. 2017 में डोनाल्ड ट्रम्प ने पुल आउट अनाउंस कर दिया था that US is going to pull out, and that pull out actually withdrawal from this Paris agreement came into effect this year, November 4 itself. So US is not a party anymore. Let's hope that under the Biden regime US would rejoin this Paris agreement. So the government, the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change has constituted a high-level inter-ministerial apex committee, which is AIPA, for implementation of Paris Agreement, which is really a very important news, which really shows that the government is really serious about implementing the Paris Agreement. It does not call climate change as a hoax, as some of the leaders have called it, and which is really important to show that India is committed towards fighting this menace of climate change. And India, you know, it is a very large country with the third largest carbon emission, guys. Third largest carbon emissions. So India's contribution is very significant. Whatever the success levels of Paris Agreement be, they would be greatly influenced by India and the kind of initiative it takes. Can somebody tell me over here which is the largest carbon emitting country in the world, and which is the second largest? I would be glad if you could tell me the second largest also. You should know which is the largest carbon emitting country and India's position also. These facts are very basic but very important. Yes, Abhijit, PIB is very important. You see, Abhijit, UPSC is this exam, be it the civil services exam or be it if you are preparing for EPFO, it is getting really competitive over the last couple of years, especially UPSC CSE if you are preparing for that. And बहुत ज़्यादा competition हो गया, prelims करना भी काफ़ी challenging हो जाता है आजकल तो. For the last couple of years what has been the trend, and that is why just one paper is not enough. You can't put all your eggs in one particular basket if you are reading one particular newspaper. PIB is a must. PIB is a must because government source है. That is why it is more important. It's a government source, right? Government के schemes हैं, government के press releases हैं, government के conventions हैं, agreement sign करते हैं, some new policies, laws. ये जो सारी चीजें हैं ये प्रेस इंफॉर्मेशन ब्यूरो रिलीज करता है, गवर्नमेंट बॉडी है, गवर्नमेंट अथॉरिटी है, और इसलिए इसका इंपॉर्टेंस यूपीएससी के लिए बहुत ज्यादा हो जाता है क्योंकि यूपीएससी इन चीजों में फोकस करता है. अगर आपने प्रीवियस क्वेश्चन देखे हो तो आपको पता चलेगा that what I'm saying basically it's true. UPSC does ask a lot of questions related to laws, policies, convention, pacts, environmental treaties, agreement, etc. So this is why the importance of PIB is there, and that is why Gradeup decided that we need to launch an initiative of this sort wherein the students, they don't have to run after all the sources and you have just one stop destination with regard to all the developments, whether it's PIB or some basic current affairs. So we are there to take care of all those things. All right, you just have to attend the lectures. All right, so quite a few guys over here, you did answer which is the largest carbon emitting country, and I can see quite a few answers beginning from Sanat, Sujit, Shrikutan. All right, so quite a few answers, and Krunal also is here, Priya. Okay, so yes, almost all of you, you're absolutely right. So US is the largest carbon emitting country in the world, followed by China. Sorry, it's China number 1, number 2 is US. That's my mistake. US is at number 2 position, second position US की है, और जो third position है वो इंडिया का है. एंड दैट इज व्हाई इंडिया कंट्रीब्यूशन इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. इंडिया कंट्रीब्यूट करेगा तभी इस चीज का सक्सेस होगा. इंडिया, चाइना एंड यूएस, all these important, European Union is also there by the way as one of the largest polluters. So all these parties need to contribute effectively to make sure that climate change is halted and the Paris Agreement is a real success. Now let's talk something about this authority that has been created, AIPA, which we just saw in the previous slide. Now guys, this authority is a very powerful kind of authority. This is a very apex kind of body which has got members from 14 ministries. 14 ministries के members हैं इसमें, and as such you can info for yourself that it is a basically interministerial body, apex agency, which is responsible for coordinated response to climate change. So basically it is into coordination, regular updates लेगी, regular monitoring करेगी, ये जो body है tracking करेगी whether we are moving towards achieving the INDC obligation that we have. So don't worry about INDC, what are these INDC or NDC obligation, we'll be talking more about that. But Paris agreement के अंडर में जो goals हैं, इंडिया के commitments हैं, उनको हम अचीव करने वाले हैं, उनको अचीव कर रहे हैं या नहीं. So this is basically an apex body that will be monitoring India's progress with regard to its commitment under the Paris agreement. Then the second fact is that AIPA would operate as a national authority, that's an apex authority to regulate carbon markets in India. Now carbon markets in India happen to be one of the fastest growing markets, carbon markets anywhere in the world, and there's a lot of potential which is still untapped. अभी भी काफी ज्यादा जो कार्बन मार्केट का पोटेंशियल है इंडिया में टैप करने को बाकी है, बिकॉज इंडिया बीइंग द थर्ड लार्जेस्ट कार्बन एमिशन कंट्री इन द वर्ल्ड, थर्ड largest carbon emitting country in the world, it still the potential is not tapped, and we still need we do a lot on that front, and still there are no clearly laid out guidelines with regard to carbon pricing, with regard to carbon market mechanism. इन चीज़ों में क्लैरिटी चाहिए. अभी कोई वेल स्टैब्लिश्ड लॉज नहीं है, अभी कोई वेल स्टैब्लिश्ड गाइडलाइंस नहीं है, तो इन चीज़ों में हमको वर्क करने की ज़रूरत है टू गिव अ clear cut direction to the authorities, to the companies, to the organization, be it private or government, so that we are moving towards the goal of achieving the climate change agreement, the INDC obligations, or the INDC goals, the goals under this Paris agreement. It will take note of the contributions of the private sector as well as the multilateral agencies in the field of climate change. So it will monitor the contribution of private sector, because private sector in India or be it in any other country, it is a very important key element with regard to the overall effort in fighting climate change. Now if the private sector is not forthcoming, it is not willing to cooperate, can you imagine whether the fight against global warming or climate change would be successful? Of course not, because it is basically the private sector that has to play its part. So the government needs to incentivize private sector, the government needs to make sure that the private sector is encouraged to adopt these clean technology methods, the latest technology, green technology, whatever the technologies are there in the market, and we need to sign those memorandum of understanding. We need to have the technology transfer with the Western countries, so that the technologies, they can be taken in India, they could be brought in India, and they could be shared with the private sector, because private sector को भी assistance की ज़रूरत पड़ेगी, and that is why the government needs to act as a facilitator. So यहाँ पे गवर्नमेंट का रोल बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट हो जाता है, एंड हेंस द नीड ऑफ AIPA, दिस एपेक्स एजेंसी. Now let's talk about India's commitment with regard to the Paris Agreement. इंडिया के क्या कमिटमेंट है, जो गोल्स हैं आपको बहुत बेसिक हैं. दिस इज समथिंग दैट यू शुड रिमेंबर बाय हार्ट, and there should be no confusion with regard to India's INDC's commitment. Now guys, Paris agreement के अंदर basically हर एक country का there is something called INDC or NDC, nationally determined contribution or intended nationally determined contribution. So basically every country has committed that it would have certain goals, it would have certain targets that it would achieve in order to contribute to the fight against global warming and climate change under the Paris Agreement. So 2030 तक ये जो NDCs हैं उनको अचीव करने हैं हर एक कंट्री ने वॉलंटियर होके. Now this is not something that has been foisted on these countries. The countries are not compelled, and the countries themselves, depending upon their capacity, depending upon their level of development, they have volunteered to to take those certain goals, to take those certain steps and targets which will aid in fighting climate change. And for your information, it is also important to remember that the NDCs are non-binding. They are non-binding. That means if the countries are not able to achieve some or all of these INDCs, the commitments, the targets, then the countries would not be penalized. Is it clear so far? Now let's talk about India's INDC. आपको पता होना चाहिए और याद भी होना चाहिए बिल्कुल by heart what are India's INDC. There are 3 NDCs India has, तो उनको INDC भी बोलते हैं. NDC is basically the same thing. Don't confuse with regard to the terminology. First INDC is reduction in the emission intensity of GDP by 33 to 35% by 2030 from 2005 level. This is the first goal that we have, that the carbon emission intensity needs to be reduced by 33 to 35% by 2030, because 2030 is the year by which the INDCs need to be achieved, and that is why it's like that that year, the target year from 2005 level. This is the base level. 2005 level से जो हमारा emission हो रहा था, तो उसमें drop कितना होना चाहिए? 33 to 35% का. So that is the first one. Because India, as I said, it's the 3rd largest carbon emitting country, and that is why India's role here becomes very important. It's no small country of some remote corner of Southeast Asia, or let's say some Africa. It's a big country with big carbon emission. That is why our commitments are really very important for the success of Paris Agreement. The second INDC is that achieving about 40% cumulative electric power installed capacity. That is the power which is there in the country, installed capacity, जितना भी power है 40% उसका, it would come from non-fossil fuels based energy. This is a very important commitment we have, and for that the government is working towards it. Now you know the government is promoting a lot these renewable energies like the solar energy or the wind energy, चाहे solar हो गया, चाहे wind हो गया, or be it biomass. In fact, this non-fossil fuels based energy also includes we have nuclear. It includes nuclear. It includes large hydropower. So all these sources, they come under non-fossil fuel based energy. It is not just restricted to solar or wind. Please remember, these are also a very important and integral component, and government, you know, it is focusing particularly on this solar, wind, biomass and nuclear. You know, government is focusing on this. और आपको ये भी पता होना चाहिए जो इंडियन गवर्नमेंट का 175 गीगावाट का टारगेट है बाय 2020. व्हाट इज द ब्रेकअप ऑफ दिस टारगेट? 175 में से सोलर का कितना कंपोनेंट है, विंड का कितना कंपोनेंट है, ये सब आपको या बायोमास का कितना कंपोनेंट है. दिस इज समथिंग दैट यू शुड रिमेंबर, एंड दिस इज योर होमवर्क. बाय द वे, दिस इज योर होमवर्क. यू शुड फाइंड मोर अबाउट 175 गीगावाट का टारगेट है जो. Then the third goal is that creating an additional carbon sink of 2.5 to 3 billion tons of CO2 equivalent through additional tree and tree cover by 2030. Now this is something called as carbon sequestration. I'm sure that you guys are aware about carbon sequestration. Are you guys aware about carbon sequestration or not? Paris Agreement, Harshpreet, naturally took place in France because Paris is in France, and that is why it is called Paris Agreement, isn't it? Guriya, a very good morning to you. Guys, कार्बन सीक्वेस्ट्रेशन का बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट कॉन्सेप्ट है. यूपीएससी ने पूछा हुआ है इससे रिलेटेड क्वेश्चन इन द पास्ट, एंड देयर इज अ गुड चांस दैट माइट बी आस्क्ड वंस अगेन. नाउ कार्बन सीक्वेस्ट्रेशन is the capturing of carbon, right? So there's a lot of carbon in the air, and we need to capture that carbon in order to make sure that the level of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is lower than it actually should be, and that is why this carbon sequestration has been cited as one of the most potent factors. अगर जो फॉरेस्ट है, फॉरेस्ट को डिस्ट्रॉय कर दोगे तो naturally there will be a lot of release of CO2 in the air, or if you're burning fossil fuels and all, and that's how we can take back some of that carbon dioxide back into how can we basically retract it, retrace it. This is, we can do it by having the forest cover increased. We need to increase our forest cover by 2030, and this is why the importance of this forest cover is there, because it would basically aid carbon sequestration. And what is India's exact commitment? 2.5 to 3 billion tons of carbon dioxide ये हमको capture करनी है through trees and forests. But by the way, for your kind information, as per the experts, we are doing very well on these two fronts. इन two fronts में बहुत अच्छा कर रहे हैं, और इस front में हम लोग lag कर रहे हैं, उसमें उतना अच्छा नहीं कर रहे हैं. And apparently we can achieve these two goals, but it is very hard to achieve this one. This is what has been said by the experts, but nobody knows, maybe in the last 10 years, in the next 10 years, we can really do wonders, and there is some sort of momentum that we will see on the third goal as well when the AIPA comes into existence. Sujit, non-fossil fuel based energy means solar. जो fossil fuel, what are fossil fuel? Like coal, we have gas, we have oil, that is fossil fuel, right? Fossil से बना हुआ है. But non-fossil fuel is like solar, wind, hydropower, nuclear energy. All these are fossil fuel based energies. Alright? Geothermal energy is also non-fossil fuel, by the way. Good morning, Chandan. How are you? Yes, Sanat, of course, mangroves would also capture carbon naturally, because mangroves are also trees. So any tree, any plant, it takes in carbon dioxide, right, releases oxygen. So वो भी carbon को capture करेगा. So yes, of course, the answer to you is yes. Now let's come to the second topic of the day, guys, which is WHO World Malaria Report 2020. WHO ने World Health Organization, which happens to be one of the important organizations under the auspices of UN, it released this World Malaria Report 2020, which gives estimated cases for malaria across the world, indicates that India has made considerable progress in reducing the malaria burden. So इंडिया को अप्रिशिएट किया गया है, बोला काफी अच्छा किया है आपने. एज पर दिस recent WHO World Malaria Report 2020, let's check out some of the facts related to this. What are the other key features of this report? Now, before talking about the particular facts associated with India, I would just like to draw your attention to something more the report has said, which is, by the way, not mentioned over here, but हमारे लिए ज़्यादा important India specific है, but आपको ये भी पता होना चाहिए overall उनका क्या pronouncement है, क्या report कहती है overall, what is the feeling of the report overall. Now, as per this report that was released recently by WHO, it has said that the fight against malaria is plateauing. It is plateauing. Plateau हो रहा है. We are not making those huge drastic gains that we made in the past. So overall, if you see, and this WHO report is basically not just focused on India. It is not just about India. It is about all the countries of the world. It is about especially those 11 high endemic countries जहाँ पे बहुत ज़्यादा cases होते हैं मलेरिया के, especially in Africa and India. So it is saying that the fight against malaria is basically plateauing. We are not making those substantial gains, especially in Africa. Africa में over the last couple of years, you see, by and large there has been no progress. और especially अब तो COVID-19 के pandemic हो गया, and because of the restrictions, the lockdown, and a lot of disruption in health supply chain, the impact on Africa has been very bad, and this will further impede Africa's fight against malaria. And Africa में tropical jungles हैं. You have countries like Congo, you have Tanzania, and all those countries जहाँ पे काफी ज़्यादा यहाँ पे malaria cases हैं, high endemicity है वहाँ पे. And that is why the UN, the WHO has said that we need to do much more particularly in Africa. As for India, coming to Southeast Asia, so India का जो रीजन है वो साउथ ईस्ट एशिया में इन्होंने यहाँ पे WHO में काउंट किया जाता है. वैसे तो यू नो दैट इज साउथ एशिया, बट इन्होंने पूरे जो साउथ ईस्ट एशिया को भी लंप किया हुआ है उसमें इंडिया को, बिकॉज साउथ ईस्ट एशिया is also quite tropical in nature. It also sees a lot of malaria cases. We have countries like Myanmar, Thailand, then we have Laos, Cambodia, Vietnam, etc. जहाँ पे बहुत ज़्यादा जंगल से thick jungles are there, and we have many this incidents of malaria over there. So काफी वहाँ पे भी इनकी pockets हैं जहाँ पे high endemic nature है malaria का. So it has appreciated India. It is in this overall context that it has appreciated India, and it has said categorically that India has made and continues to make those impressive gains in the reduction of malaria burden. बहुत अच्छा कर रहा है इंडिया में. ओवरऑल यू सी द ग्रोथ हैज प्लेटोड, जो गेन्स आर प्लेटोइंग. बहुत ज्यादा हमको इंक्रीमेंट देखने को नहीं मिलता है, इंप्रूवमेंट देखने को नहीं मिलता है. बट व्हेन वी आर डीलिंग विद इंडिया, इंडिया इज डूइंग ट्रिमेंडसली वेल. India has contributed to the largest drop in cases region wide also. So region wise Southeast Asian region में India ने सबसे अच्छा परफॉर्म किया है. And what is this drop like? From approximately 2 crore people to 60 lakh people. So 20 million से लेके जो फिगर है वो ड्रॉप कर गया 60 लाख तक. एंड ये 20 मिलियन बेसिकली 2000 में था. 2000 में 20 मिलियन था, 2 करोड़ लोग इतना केसेस आता था कंट्री में सामने. एंड इट ड्रॉप टू 6 मिलियन और 60 लाख केसेस, which is indeed a very sharp reduction. Malaria deaths also declined. So what the report says is, it is not only the cases, because there are two things. One is the cases and the second is deaths. कई सारे केसेस होंगे, उनमें से कुछ अनफॉर्चुनेट केसेस होंगे जहां पे the patients could not be saved, and that is why we will have some malaria deaths also, and they declined from about 29,500 in 2000 to about 7,700 last year. Then we have some of the states wherein there is some sort of high endemic nature of malaria. स्पेशली जो ईस्टर्न पार्ट है कंट्री का, आपको पता है वहाँ पे जंगल ज़्यादा हैं, और जहाँ पे ज़्यादा जंगल हैं, जहाँ पे ज़्यादा थिक वेजिटेशन होगी वहाँ पे, और जो क्लाइमेट भी उसके हिसाब से थोड़ा ह्यूमिड रहेगा, मॉइस्ट रहेगा, वहाँ पे ज़्यादा मलेरिया केसेस होंगे. एंड मोस्ट ऑफ दीज केसेस यू सी दे आर रिस्ट्रिक्टेड टू द स्टेट्स ऑफ ओडिशा, छत्तीसगढ़, झारखंड, मेघालय एंड मध्य प्रदेश. एंड मध्य प्रदेश में भी, टू बी मोर प्रिसाइज, इन द ईस्टर्न पार्ट ऑफ मध्य प्रदेश, जहां पे ज्यादा थिक जंगल्स हैं, ट्राइबल पॉपुलेशन काफी है, उतना ज्यादा जो हेल्थ इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर रोबस्ट नहीं है. एंड मोस्ट ऑफ दीज केसेस, यू सी 45.47% ऑफ मलेरिया केसेस दे कम फ्रॉम दीज अ फ्यू स्टेट्स, एंड 63.64% ऑफ मलेरिया डेथ्स. सो ज्यादा जो बर्डन है वो ईस्टर्न पॉकेट में है कंट्री के. सो दिस इज समथिंग द रिपोर्ट इज हाईलाइटेड. Yes, Gudia, I know that WHO का credentials, especially with reference to COVID-19 pandemic, it has come into question, but there is no doubt that as a whole the organization is very important. हमको coordinated effort चाहिए, be it malaria, be it dengue, or be it some other disease. So COVID के केस में, yes, you might say that it has come into question, but it is not just COVID that WHO is responsible for. काफ़ी और चीज़ें हैं, काफ़ी चीज़ें देखनी पड़ती हैं WHO को, and as such it is indeed a very very critical component for the drive of humanity towards better health. So WHO का importance रहेगा. There is no doubt that there is no alternative to WHO. Yes, we need to strengthen some of the mechanisms. Yes, there could be some flaws, there could be some lacunas that need to be sorted out, but there is no question that WHO is a very very critical component in the United Nations. WHO has initiated the high burden to high impact initiative. Now guys, this is something really important for your prelims. Prelims में पूछा जा सकता है that high burden high impact initiative is associated with what? So it might ask you this way, HBHI initiative is associated with what, and it might give you a couple of options. For example, it might say, is it related to malaria, is it related to COVID, it is related to dengue or some other disease, AIDS, etc. So you will have to identify, and it might also ask you which is the agency that has initiated this program, high burden to high impact, और आपको आंसर पता होना चाहिए, याद होना चाहिए, WHO. And guys, in fact, the best way to make use of this initiative is by making a notebook. Please make a separate notebook. उसमें PIB टाइटल लिख लीजिए, और जितने भी हम इंपॉर्टेंट फैक्ट्स करेंगे क्लास में, जो गवर्नमेंट इनिशिएटिव्स हैं, स्कीम्स हैं, पॉलिसीज हैं, एनवायरमेंट से रिलेटेड और अदरवाइज, सो वी हैव लॉट ऑफ दीज फैसेट्स, राइट, जो PIB विल कवर. So you should be making those notes, you should be taking down those important points, because naturally you would not be able to retain all this information in the longer term or in the medium term. And that is why you see this series becomes very important, so that you have this good compilation of all the important facts, and you can revise all those things right before your exam, and it will really serve you very, very well. All right, so this is the best way to make use of this series, because abhi aap log maybe class you would be under this impression that I would remember and retain this information, but you're not very sure because human memory is very fickle. Implementation of high burden to high impact initiative has been started in 4 states. India में कौन कौन से states हैं जहाँ पे ये initiative start किया गया है? We have West Bengal and Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh and Madhya Pradesh. So we have 4 states जहाँ पे इंडिया में ये initiative start किया गया, because basically it is this pocket which requires the most intervention. सबसे ज़्यादा intervention की ज़रूरत इस part में है, eastern part of the country. So you can see this map. This shows basically the level of जो endemic nature है, endemicity जिसको बोलते हैं, यहाँ पे eastern part में सबसे reddish color में है. So you see the change has been substantial for India. You see यहाँ पे और यहाँ पे इतना ज़्यादा जो reddish color है, that has got restricted and reduced down to a very small area. You see, relatively speaking, यहाँ पे भी इतना यहाँ पे दिखने को मिलता है. Some pockets over here, some pockets over here, but by and large this was a huge kind of patch wherein we have this the high incidence of malaria in the country. But the incidents, the cases, the incidents have got reduced to a smaller area, and that is why the WHO said that we need to that India has made rapid gains, and this is something that needs to be replicated in African countries also. अफ्रीकन कंट्रीज में भी ये सक्सेस जो इंडिया का है वो रेप्लिकेट करने की जरूरत है, और इंडिया बीइंग अ मॉडल कंट्री बहुत अच्छा कर रहा है, एंड इट इज अपलॉडेड इंडिया व्हाइल रेजिंग सम सॉर्ट ऑफ कंसर्न ओवर अफ्रीकाज फाइट अगेंस्ट मलेरिया. गायत्री PIB is Press Information Bureau. It's Press Information Bureau. It's a government source जो press release वगैरह करता है, important जो press releases होते हैं, and this is something that we'll be doing on a daily basis as a summary, as an analysis, and we'll be talking about some associated facts, because the press release will only talk about that theme that it is talking about. So climate change होगा, so it will talk about maybe some new body that it is formed, but it is our job to discuss more on the associated facts like Paris Agreement, like INDC, and this is how exactly we are going to do this class. Now the next topic is India and Finland sign MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, sign हुआ है इंडिया और फिनलैंड के बीच में recently, that is on 2nd December, in fact yesterday itself. Signed in Memorandum of Understanding for developing cooperation between the two countries in the field of environment protection and biodiversity conservation. So these are two important themes, and let's talk about some of the more details about this MOU. It's a platform to further exchange best practices in areas like prevention of air and water pollution, waste management, promotion of circular energy, climate change, conservation of marine and coastal resources. So you can see that themes are more or less same. They are related to environment, they are related to the Paris agreement. Ultimately जो Paris agreement से भी यहाँ पे relation है, because here we are talking about climate change, here we are talking about air pollution, right? So काफ़ी सारी चीज़ें इंडिया को impact करती हैं directly और world को भी impact करती हैं, because we still kind of don't have those technologies which will really help us to achieve the goals that are there under the Paris agreement. और हमको technology transfer की काफ़ी ज़रूरत है इंडिया को, and that is why you see the country that has signed this memorandum of understanding with is Finland, because all these countries of North Europe, be it Finland, be it Sweden, आपको पता है होगा, be it Norway, they are very good at technology, they are very good at green technology precisely. एंड HDI से लेके हर चीज में अगर आप लोगों ने इंडिसेस में थोड़ा नोट किया होगा, यू वुड हैव रियलाइज दैट ऑलमोस्ट इन ऑल द इंडिसेस दैट वी हैव इन द वर्ल्ड, it is almost the sole dominance and monopoly of the North European countries like Finland, Norway, Sweden. यही टॉप करते हैं रैंक को, बीट HDI और बीट द इनकम्स और बीट द हेल्थ, हर चीज में इनका मोनोपोली होता है. एंड ग्रीन एनर्जी में बाय द वे दे आर डूइंग ट्रिमेंडसली वेल, बहुत अच्छा कर रहे हैं, बिकॉज इट इज these countries that climate change is going to affect the most, apart from some tropical and subtropical countries. जो ये वाले countries हैं इनको भी काफी impact होगा यहाँ पे जो लोगों की livelihoods का, and that is why they have done really well on that front. Now this MOU was signed between Shri Prakash Javadekar, who is the Minister of Environment, Forest and Climate Change in India, and Miss Krista Mikkonen, who is the Minister of Environment and Climate Change. So basically between these two sets of ministers relating to environment and climate change, they represented their respective government and they signed this memorandum of understanding. But कैसे sign करेंगे? Virtually sign हो गया, because naturally due to COVID situation in the world we are not able to sign those face-to-face memorandum of understanding. It will help India fulfill its commitment made under the Paris Agreement. Naturally, as I said, these memorandum of understanding, they entail a lot of these best practices. Best practices है इसमें, technology transfer है, then we have those coordination and working together, the teams that will be formed. So this is how basically India would benefit in order to make sure that it achieves its INDC commitment under the Paris Agreement, right? So technology का बहुत important role रहेगा. आज की डेट में टेक्नोलॉजी हर फैसेट में बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट हो जाती है, स्पेशली फॉर अ सब्जेक्ट लाइक क्लाइमेट चेंज. Technology would really have to play a very decisive factor, and this is what the government is aware about. India has, by the way, achieved its voluntary target of reducing the emission intensity of its GDP by 21% over 2005 levels. So India ने 2009 में एक voluntary commitment की थी, 2009 में voluntary commitment की थी that it would reduce its carbon emission intensity by 20 to 25% over 2005 levels. So Kyoto Protocol, आपको पता होगा Kyoto Protocol basically it was not kind of giving those targets to the developing countries. Developing countries के कोई target नहीं थे, but India ने फिर भी voluntarily India ने कहा कि हमको भी अपना role play करना चाहिए. And after a couple of years, India in 2009 it gave a target to itself that it would achieve this emission reduction intensity of its GDP by 21% over 2005 levels, and it did achieve it, by the way, achieve bhi kar liya, and now is poised to achieve 35% reduction well before the target year of 2030. In fact, recently the Prime Minister of the country, that is the Prime Minister of India, Mr. Modi, he had also highlighted this fact that we are well on the path of achieving this target of achieving this 35 reduction well before 2030. So मैंने आपको starting में कहा था, when we were doing the INDCs, India's INDC, 3 of them, 2 yes, India is very well on the path to achieve those targets. And as for the forest cover expansion, right, you remember carbon sequestration, वहां पे experts बोलते हैं इंडिया को अभी भी काफी कुछ करने की जरूरत है, because going by the pace that we are going at right now, India would not be able to achieve that target perhaps. So we need to do much more on that front. तो तीसरा जो गोल है उसमें हमको really हमको एक्सेलरेट करने की जरूरत है मोमेंटम को. Now let's come to the last topic of the day and the last theme of the day, which is review of Ayushman Bharat, PMJ and National Digital Health Mission. So recently Dr. Harshvardhan, who is the Union Minister for Health and Family Welfare, visited National Health Authority to conduct high-level review of Ayushman Bharat, PMJ and National Digital Health Mission NDHM. Now review is also very important in addition to having a very robust policy and scheme implemented. अगर आपके पास कोई स्कीम आपने फॉर्मुलेट की है, you have crafted that scheme very nicely, right? You have all the vision and foresight, but you have not been able to implement and execute on the ground well, then we would not have much impact of that scheme, and this is where India lacks on a lot of front. In fact, हमारे पास एक नहीं, in fact there are tens and hundreds of such schemes that we have seen in the past, right, since the time of independence, which have been crafted very meticulously. बहुत अच्छे से craft की गई है, बहुत अच्छे से plan की गई है, but when it comes to execution and implementation part, when it comes to the implementation part, when it comes to the feedback part, then unfortunately we are not very good at it. And that is why we see that despite a lot of these initiatives being taken by the government at the state level, at the central level, the impact is very lukewarm, impact is very lackluster. So what we need to do is implementation, feedback, review, वो सारी चीजें जरूरत है, and probably it's a step in that direction only, which is basically high level review of these two great initiatives, NDHM and Ayushman Bharat, PMJ. Now let's talk about these two things. One is NDHM and National Digital Health Mission and Ayushman Bharat Abhiyan. Now हमारा यहाँ पे जो टेक अवे है, हमारा जो फोकस होगा, this is not that what kind of review did Dr. Harshvardhan did, that is not our focus, that is not our concern. हमारा यहाँ पे एनालिसिस किस चीज में रहेगा, what is NDHM. Our focus would be to know more about Ayushman Bharat, the scheme, why it is important, what are the various facts, and this is what we are going to do. Now NDHM is a mission to harness technology to improve the efficiency, effectiveness and transparency of healthcare delivery in India. Now as the term itself suggests that this is National Digital Health Mission. So basically it's kind of moving towards the direction of digitizing the healthcare delivery and has a lot of components in it, so that जितना ज़्यादा digitization हो, जितना ज़्यादा हम digital domain में जाएं, उतना ज़्यादा effectively universal health coverage का जो goal है, universal health coverage, you know, this is a goal, this is like one of the goals and targets of the National Health Policy of 2017. India wants to move towards the goal of achieving universal health coverage. सारे citizens को country के we should have access to the healthcare system. Number one is access, that is important, and second is quality healthcare. So access भी होनी चाहिए, number one, right, चाहे remote corner में हो, चाहे interior location में हो, and second is that it should be quality healthcare also. This is how we would be able to move towards in the direction of universal healthcare. And by the way, there is third component also, it should be affordable too. It should be affordable too. Access है, quality है, but we can't afford it, then it becomes a challenge. So affordability is also a very critical element towards achieving universal healthcare. And National Health Policy, you know, it was rolled out in 2017. It urges the government to move towards in this direction. It has some important elements. Health ID. Now every Indian citizen apparently under this National Digital Health Mission will have a unique health ID, right? Then there is a provision of DigiDoctor. डॉक्टर से डायरेक्टली आप कंसल्ट कर सकते हैं, ऑनलाइन हेल्थ फैसिलिटी रजिस्ट्री है, पर्सनल हेल्थ रिकॉर्ड होंगे विच विल बी लाइक कॉन्फिडेंशियल ऑल्सो, सो काफ़ी उसमें कॉन्फिडेंशियलिटी का एलिमेंट रहेगा, बट योर पर्सनल हेल्थ रिकॉर्ड्स विल बी अपलोडेड एंड you don't have to like carry along your health records physically. E-pharmacy और टेलीमेडिसिन का बाद में इन द नेक्स्ट फेज ई-फार्मेसी का एंड टेलीमेडिसिन का भी कंपोनेंट इसमें आ जाएगा. सो यू सी दिस इज काइंड ऑफ वेरी विजनरी काइंड ऑफ स्कीम, काफ़ी फॉरवर्ड लुकिंग है, काफ़ी एडवांस्ड है, इन सिंक विद द नीड्स ऑफ द टाइम, बिकॉज इफ इंडिया हैज टू मेक a solid progress towards achieving this goal of USC, then naturally this NDHM can play a very important role. और इसमें जो इम्पोर्टेंस ज़्यादा किस चीज़ का बढ़ जाएगा, इसमें इम्पोर्टेंस होगा एग्जीक्यूशन का, इम्प्लीमेंटेशन का. implemented by National Health Authority which is under Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. By the way, National Health Authority is the same body that is the apex this implementation agency for आयुष्मान भारत स्कीम. सो नेशनल हेल्थ अथॉरिटी किस किस को मॉनिटर कर रहा है, एक तो आयुष्मान भारत अभियान को, द स्कीम दैट विल बी टॉकिंग अबाउट नाउ, एंड सेकंड इज नेशनल डिजिटल हेल्थ मिशन. आई होप दिस इज क्लियर टू यू. नाउ लेट्स टॉक अबाउट आयुष्मान भारत. अब हमने आयुष्मान भारत के बारे में बात कर ही दी है, सो वीड हैव टू टॉक मोर अबाउट आयुष्मान भारत. एंड गाइज, दिस इज गोइंग टू बी द लास्ट टॉपिक, प्लीज पे अटेंशन. Why? Because it is a very important theme for your UPSC exam. बहुत ज़्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट थीम है बिकॉज ऑफ इट्स साइज, बिकॉज ऑफ इट्स नेचर एंड बिकॉज ऑफ इट्स इंटेंट, राइट? सो प्लीज लिसन टू दिस वेरी केयरफुली. नाउ दिस आयुष्मान भारत अभियान कंप्राइजेस टू इंटर रिलेटेड कॉम्पोनेंट्स. इसके अंडर में दो इंटर रिलेटेड कॉम्पोनेंट्स होते हैं. सो इट हैज गॉट टू इंपॉर्टेंट थीम्स एंड कॉम्पोनेंट्स. वन इज हेल्थ एंड वेलनेस सेंटर्स. हेल्थ एंड वेलनेस सेंटर्स which are basically targeted towards primary health centers. So PHCs है, primary health centers, वहाँ पे जो basic level की facility है वो primary health centers में मिलेगी. So it is the primary health centers that health and wellness centers are basically talking about. So it's the same thing. As for the secondary and tertiary care, जो secondary और tertiary care है, थोड़ा advanced level की आपको problem है, तो वो PMJ प्रधानमंत्री जन आरोग्य योजना इसके अंडर में कवर होगी, राइट? एंड इट इज नेचुरली अ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट स्कीम बाय द गवर्नमेंट. इन फैक्ट इट इज वर्ल्ड्स लार्जेस्ट health coverage policy that has been or rather scheme that has been formulated by any country so far. It's the world's largest health insurance policy ever by any country. So you can imagine the quantum and magnitude of this important scheme, and it provides a cover of up to 5 lakh per year per family per year for secondary and tertiary hospitalization. 5 लाख रुपए तक का जो भी होगा, that will be absolutely free of cost. You don't have to pay any premium or any cost. And who are the target segment? It is basically the marginal and vulnerable people. It is not for the middle classes. It is not for the rich classes. It is for covering the vulnerable individuals, for people who are poor. And how do we decide that who are the people who are the beneficiaries of this particular scheme? SECC 2011 के अंडर में जिन जिन लोगों का नाम होगा, राइट, सोशियो इकोनॉमिक कास्ट सेंसस 2011. और आप मेरे को ये बता सकते हैं कि कैन बी टेल मी which is the ministry that conducted SECC 2011? Very pertinent question. Let me see if you have this idea about SECC 2011 or not. Socio-economic caste census 2011 में जो ये सेंसस हुआ था, इसको किस गवर्नमेंट मिनिस्ट्री ने कंडक्ट करवाया था? दिस इज माय क्वेश्चन टू यू. And then we will be talking more about this, because SECC 2011 में जो भी डेटा है, जिन जिन लोगों के नाम है, उसके बेसिस पे जो बेनिफिशियरीज को आइडेंटिफाई किया जाएगा. इट इज नॉट सेंसस 2011. प्लीज try to distinguish between census 2011 and SECC 2011. So SECC 2011 के बेसिस पे डिस्टिंग्विश किया जाएगा फैमिलीज को, इंडिविजुअल्स को, and it seeks to cover almost 11 crore individual vulnerable families, roughly approximating to 50 crore beneficiaries or individuals, because एक फैमिली में roughly about, it is said that the idea is that एक फैमिली में there will be roughly about 5 crore 5 individuals, and that translates into 50 crore beneficiaries. So 10 करोड़ 11 करोड़ परिवार का लगभग 50 करोड़ individuals होंगे. And there is also no restriction on the basis of family size, age or gender. In the previous schemes that we have launched, we have seen in the past that there was restriction on the basis of family size. Family size पे restriction था, 3 लोगों पे, 4 लोगों पे, age का था, gender का. यहाँ पे ऐसा कोई restriction नहीं है. और it's not only the hospitalization expenses that will be reimbursed, but it is also the pre and post hospitalization costs. It is the pre and post hospitalization cost also that is covered under this insurance policy, right? So I hope you know something about this. So yes, we have some answers coming in, and just one answer so far by Pratiksha, who is right. Ministry of Rural Development. The Ministry of Rural Development, indeed, it conducted the SECC 2011, and the data of which is used by a lot of these programs. By the way, आजकल काफ़ी frequently आता है SECC, कई जो schemes हैं वो SECC 2011 इसके बेसिस पे बेनिफिशियरीज को आइडेंटिफाई करते हैं, जैसे मनरेगा, राइट? तो वो भी इसके बेसिस पे आइडेंटिफाई करता है. All right, so Kunal says he also gave the answer, but I could not see Kunal giving the. All right, okay, so there are some answers. All right, so I missed out those answers that got eclipsed over here. So we have, yes, Kunal says that Shikutan is right, and Anu is also there. But Anu, it is not Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, it is Ministry of Rural Development. And Anulekha also did try to attempt, but it is not Tribal Affairs, Anulekha. Now you know that is Ministry of Rural Development. So that is the takeaway from this particular scheme. Now guys, towards the end, I have this important announcement for you. Those of you who are not aware, we have something called Gradeup Super subscription plan, which gives you unlimited access to all the structured live courses and mock tests. And we can you have this various duration program subscription plans, 24 months, 12 months, 6 months, depending upon your needs. And you will have all the unlimited access to all these structured courses, mock tests that will be taught by our expert faculty. And you can reach out to the counselors on this number 965005299604. A link is also given in the description box. Now those of you who have any question, you can answer, or you can ask me the question. And those of you who are not aware about this, please do look at this. This is important for you. For those of you who are preparing for UPSC CSC 2021, we have daily current affairs, editorial analysis, NCRT, NIOS IGNU quiz, weekly PIB analysis, and Gradeup Super. So this is on YouTube, and which you are already know that some of you are taking benefit out of all these initiatives. And then we also have ongoing courses right now for the subscription plan, under the subscription plan, which is like these initiatives: IS 2021, IS 2021, again this is in Hindi. And then we have these various components that are already going on, and we have some upcoming courses also for your subscription plan. These are the upcoming courses. Then for those of you who want to avail the free series, please do go to the Gradeup app, and you can have these various initiative accessed. IS 2021, you can see a couple of them. So this is our free offering to you. All right, so guys, any questions regarding what we have done? Okay, I think no question. I'll see you tomorrow, guys, at the same time with another set of development, with another set of events. And I do hope that you found this session fruitful, and I do hope that it will continue to be fruitful to you for your overall preparation. And I will see you tomorrow at the same time, guys, at 9 o'clock sharp, with another set of developments, with another set of analysis, and that is what we are going to do tomorrow. Till then, thank you everybody, take care. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye bye.